All right, let's dive into the world of chemistry, specifically how scientists are using it to build the future.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff.
We've got a ton of research articles all about catalysis and some big breakthroughs.
It's really cool because it's not just happening in some lab, you know?
Yeah.
This stuff is shaping the medicine we take, the materials we use, even how we deal with climate change. Yeah.
Exactly. So first up, organocatalytic asymmetric synthesis.
Whoa, big words.
I know, right? But stick with me. It's way cooler than it sounds. Imagine trying to build a molecule, but it can exist in two, like, mirror image forms, like your hands.
I see. Chirality.
Right. And these mirror images, they might look similar, but they can act totally different, especially in pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's like having two keys. They look the same, but only one unlocks the door. And with medicine, using the wrong key could mean the drug just doesn't work. Or even worse, causes bad side effects.
Exactly. And that's where organocatalytic asymmetric synthesis comes in. It's like chemists become master locksmiths. They can create just the right key molecule.
And the cool part is they do this with organic molecules as catalysts, so no need for, those heavy metals that can be toxic.
That's a game changer, especially when you think how many people need medicine every day. Okay, factoid number 2, building connections, specifically carbon bonds. This one is called palladium-catalyzed cross-coupling.
This reaction is like, imagine a tiny robot, super precise. It connects carbon atoms together.
Like Legos, but the robot puts them together for you.
Exactly. And you can build complex molecular structures.
So it's kind of like automating how we make molecules.
Yeah.
That help with new materials, right? What about, say, new drugs?
Huge impact. Many of the drugs we have today, we couldn't make them without this reaction. Not efficiently, at least. And not just more complex molecules, but faster, too. Less waste, too.
Wow. So this palladium catalyst is kind of a silent hero in the medicine world. Now, our third factoid, this one is called click chemistry.
I love that name. Click chemistry.
Me too. It sounds so efficient.
It is. It's all about speed and efficiency. Like, imagine puzzle pieces snapping together perfectly. The reactions are fast, they're reliable, and they happen under, really mild conditions, so they're really useful.
So this makes me think of targeted drug delivery, like
Yeah.
getting the medicine to go exactly where you need it in the body. Is click chemistry involved there?
Absolutely. It's perfect for linking different molecules together. Imagine attaching a drug molecule to a protein, but only to a protein found in diseased cells. That's the kind of precision click chemistry allows.
That's amazing, like a molecular GPS guiding the medicine, less side effects, and it works better too. Okay, next up, we've got Diels-Alder reactions. What are these known for?
Diels-Alder, it's all about building rings. Six-membered carbon rings, and those are super common in nature and in a lot of medicines too. And these reactions, they're elegant, efficient, like they happen in one step without any of the messy stuff in between.
So nature really likes these ring structures. I mean, they're everywhere, right?
Hmm.
Hormones, vitamins, even the molecules that give plants their color. So Diels-Alder, that's how chemists can recreate them in the lab.
Exactly. And we can even go beyond what nature has done, design new molecules with specific properties. It's like a whole world of possibilities for new medicines, new materials, and even like sustainable replacements for things we already use.
Fascinating. Speaking of creating new things, our last factoid today is azide alkyne cycloaddition. And this one really shows what click chemistry can do. What's so special about this reaction?
It's often called just the click reaction. It's beautifully simple and efficient. You just have two components, an azide and alkyne, and they click together, forming this stable five-membered ring. And it just works. Under mild conditions, can link all kinds of molecules.
So like a molecular building block. And I read that this is huge for materials science and even nanotechnology.
Absolutely. If you can link molecules together at such a tiny scale, you can create materials with unheard of properties, self-healing materials, strong composites, even tiny molecular machines. It's amazing how these reactions are changing, not just materials, but how we treat diseases too. Our sources talk about some interesting stuff, like this compound called ibogaine.
Ibogaine. Yeah, that rings a bell. Remind me what's so special about it.
It comes from the root bark of this shrub in Africa, and it's been used in traditional ceremonies for a long time. But the really cool thing is it might help treat addiction.
Seriously. Treat addiction. How could one compound do that?
Well, they think it targets certain receptors in the brain, specifically the ones involved in the reward pathways, the ones that addiction kind of hijacks.
So like resetting the brain's reward system.
Yeah, exactly. Breaking the cycle of cravings. It's complicated. We need more research for sure. But if it works, ibogaine could be huge in the fight against addiction.
It definitely sounds promising,
Yeah.
especially with how much addiction affects people, you know. Okay, switching gears a bit. I saw that one source talked about plastic pollution. Something about plastic-eating enzymes.
It sounds crazy, but it's real. Some bacteria, they can actually make enzymes that break down key plastic. That's like the most common type.
So we could use these enzymes to clean up all that plastic waste.
Yeah, that's the hope. They're looking into using them for bioremediation. That's like using nature to clean up pollution. Imagine like facilities where we break down plastic with these enzymes.
That would be amazing. It's like sometimes the solutions are right there in nature, just waiting to be discovered.
Yeah.
Speaking of nature, our sources also talked about polykentides. What are those?
Colloidides, they're these molecules found in nature, and they do a lot of different things biologically. Like
Oh.
many of the best antibiotics and anti-cancer drugs, they come from polyketides.
So nature already has a bunch of medicines, we just got to find them.
Exactly. And the way they're made is fascinating. Nature uses these enzyme assembly lines, like little factories, to build these complex structures. And chemists are trying to uh, copy that, even improve it in the lab.
Wow, so learning from nature to create even better medicine. That's really cool. Okay, let's talk about CRISPR. That's been in the news a lot, right? For like rewriting the code of life.
Well, yeah, it's a gene editing tool. It's revolutionized how we can work with DNA. Imagine you can target a specific gene and change it precisely, like fixing a typo. CRISPR lets us do that, and it's incredibly accurate.
That's amazing. What can we even do with that kind of technology?
So many things. We could fix genetic defects that cause disease, engineer crops that are resistant to pests, maybe even new ways to fight cancer. But of course, with such power, there are ethical questions too, especially when it comes to editing the human genome.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a sensitive topic. We have to be really careful with this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on from genes to material science. I saw something about graphene. What's so special about that?
Graphene is called a wonder material, and for good reason. It's just one layer of carbon atoms arranged in this hexagonal lattice. Think like chicken wire, but super tiny. And it's strong, like 200 times stronger than steel, but also light and flexible. And it conducts heat and electricity really well. It's even transparent.
Wow, so what can we even DO with graphene?
The possibilities are huge.
Mhm.
Flexible electronics, super efficient solar cells, super fast computer chips, even better water filters, all thanks to graphene.
It really lives up to the hype. It seems like we're entering a whole new era of materials.
Yeah.
Now, this one caught my eye, male contraception. Have there been any breakthroughs there?
Yes, the male contraceptive pill. It's been a long time coming, but there has been some progress lately.
Okay, tell me more.
So there's this protein P2X1 receptor, and it's really important for how sperm move. And they think if we can target this protein, we can create a male pill, but without messing with hormones.
So it would basically block sperm from getting where they need to go.
Yeah, that's the idea. And because it's targeting this specific protein, it could be safer than using hormones. It's early days, but it's exciting research.
Very exciting. A reliable male contraceptive would be a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's dive into cells now.
Yeah.
What about ion channels? What are those, and why are they important?
Ion channels, they're like tiny gates in our cell membranes. They control the flow of ions. Those are charged atoms in and out of cells. And they're super important for like everything. Nerve impulses, muscle contractions, hormones, you name it.
So they're like the traffic cops of the cell,
Yeah,
making sure everything goes where it's supposed to.
exactly. And we're getting much better at understanding how they work. Thanks to a technique called cryo-electron microscopy, it lets us actually see the 3D structure of these channels.
Wow, so we can actually see these tiny machines in action. That's incredible.
It is. And it helps us understand how they work, how they're controlled, and what goes wrong in diseases. That's crucial for developing better drugs for all sorts of conditions.
Amazing. Okay, I keep hearing about the gut-brain axis. What's the science behind that?
So it turns out the bacteria in our gut, the microbiome, they're not just hanging out, they're actually talking to our brains, affecting our mood, behavior, even our health overall.
Wait, so the bacteria in our gut can send signals to our brain. How is that even possible?
Well, it's all about chemistry, really. Some of these bacteria, they produce molecules that can interact with our nervous system. directly or indirectly. They can influence neurotransmitters, those are the chemical messengers in our brain, and even affect our immune system.
So the type of bacteria in our gut, that can actually affect our mental health.
That's what the research is showing, yeah. And it's a hot topic right now. There's more and more evidence that an imbalance in the gut microbiome that can contribute to things like depression, anxiety, even diseases like Parkinson's.
Wow, that's incredible. It
Yeah.
really shows how connected our bodies are. Now let's talk about fat. Not the bad kind, but brown fat, right?
Right. Not all fat is created equal. Brown fat is actually good for us.
Okay, so how is it different from the fat we usually try to avoid?
Well, white fat, that's for storing energy. Brown fat, it burns energy to make heat. It's called thermogenesis, and it helps us stay warm, especially when it's cold.
So it's like our internal heater. But is there more to it than that?
Yeah, it seems so. Research suggests that brown fat might be involved in metabolism and weight control too.
Yeah.
So maybe we could activate brown fat to fight obesity and stuff like that.
That's fascinating. Brown fat, the unlikely hero.
Yeah.
Okay, what about zebrafish? I saw that they're used in toxicology research.
Yeah, zebrafish embryos, they're transparent, so researchers can actually watch them develop like a movie. You can see how organs and tissues form.
So they can see exactly how chemicals affect development.
Exactly. And zebrafish, they share a lot of genes with humans, so what we learn from them, it can often apply to human health too. They're like tiny living test tubes.
That's so cool. Okay, let's crank things up a notch.
Yeah.
Super acids. What makes them super?
They're like the kings of the acid world. Way stronger than, your typical acids like sulfuric acid. So strong that normal acids look like water next to them.
Whoa, intense. How are they so acidic?
They're amazing at donating protons. Those are the hydrogen ions that make an acid acidic. They can protonate stuff that we thought was totally unreactive.
So like pushing the limits of chemistry.
Exactly. And they might sound scary, but scientists use them carefully to do reactions that are important for a lot of industrial applications.
I see. So even extreme stuff can be useful if you handle it right. Now, what about microwave chemistry? Is that like cooking chemicals in the microwave?
Not exactly, but similar. We use special reactors that can really precisely control how the microwave energy is delivered to the reaction.
So instead of just heating everything up, the microwaves target specific molecules.
Yeah. And that usually means you get more of the product you want, it's more efficient, and better for the environment, too.
So microwave chemistry, it's like a win-win. Now, what about MOFs? Metal organic frameworks, is that right?
Yeah, MOFs. They're like molecular sponges. They have all these tiny holes and channels, giving them a ton of surface area.
A sponge with microscopic holes?
Yeah, exactly. And because of that, they're great at absorbing gases, so we could use them for things like carbon capture, which is important for climate change.
So they could help clean up emissions?
Yeah.
What else can they do?
They can also be catalysts to speed up reactions. Or we could use them to deliver drugs or other molecules. Imagine a material that can trap and release specific molecules, like on demand.
Wow. MOFs sound incredibly versatile.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get cold now. Liquid helium. What's the big deal about it?
Well, when you cool it down really, really low, liquid helium does this crazy thing called superfluidity.
Superfluidity. That sounds like a superpower.
It basically means it can flow without any resistance, no friction at all.
So it could, like, flow uphill.
Exactly. It can even escape from containers that seem totally sealed. It's a quantum thing. It's weird.
Totally bizarre.
Yeah.
Okay, back to renewable energy. What about perovskite solar cells? I've heard those are promising.
Yeah, they're making a splash because they're efficient and affordable.
So more people could actually use solar power.
That's the hope. The material, it has this special crystal structure, and it's really good at absorbing sunlight and making electricity, like as good as those traditional silicon solar cells, but way cheaper to make.
That could be huge for transitioning to clean energy.
Yeah.
Now, this is cool. Mussels. Turns out they can teach us about adhesives.
Mussels, they're like the glue masters of the sea. They stick to rocks and stuff, even in the ocean. And they do it with these special proteins that make this super strong waterproof glue.
And scientists want to copy that.
Yeah. They're studying those muscle proteins, figuring out how they work, and they're using that to design synthetic glues that can work underwater.
Like medical glues that could work even with blood and stuff.
Exactly. Or like glues to repair ships or underwater pipes without having to dry them out first.
That's amazing. Nature always has the best solutions. Okay, what about ancient remedies? Are those making a comeback?
It seems so. With all the new technology we have now, scientists are looking back at those old medical texts and plant extracts. They're figuring out exactly what compounds make them work.
So we're rediscovering nature's medicine cabinet.
Yeah, kind of. And it's leading to new drugs and therapies based on that ancient knowledge.
Very cool. Okay, plastic waste. It's a huge problem. What about chemical upcycling? Is that a potential solution?
It could be. The idea is to break down the plastic into its basic building blocks, the monomers, or other useful chemicals, and then use those to make new, high-quality materials.
So instead of just downcycling plastic, we could turn it back into something just as good.
Exactly. We could make new stuff without needing new fossil fuels. It's a way to close the loop on plastic production.
That's a much better way to deal with plastic.
Yeah.
Now, what are high-entropy alloys? How are they different from regular alloys?
So normal alloys, they usually have one or two main elements, plus a bit of others. High entropy alloys, they're all about mixing it up. You take 5 or more metals, mix them all together in equal amounts, and that creates some really unique properties.
It's like a metal melting pot. What kind of properties are we talking about?
Well, they tend to be super strong, resistant to wear and tear, even at high temperatures. And they don't corrode easily.
So perfect for tough environments, like spaceships or power plants.
Yeah, exactly. They're really changing how we think about materials. Sometimes making things more complex actually makes them better. Okay, let's go back to cells. What are microRNAs? They're like tiny switches that control how genes are expressed. They don't actually code for proteins themselves, but they control how other genes do that.
So they're like the conductors of the genetic orchestra, making sure everything plays at the right time.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They can either stop a gene from making protein, or they can target the messenger RNA, basically silencing the gene.
So they're really important for making sure our genes are doing the right thing. But what happens when they don't work right?
Well, when microRNA regulation goes wrong, that's been linked to all sorts of diseases. Cancer, heart disease, neurological disorders. So figuring out how they work, that could lead to new ways to diagnose and treat these diseases.
Wow, those tiny molecules are really powerful. Okay, what about melanin? We all know it gives us our skin color, but is there more to it?
Definitely. It's more than just color. Melanin is a powerful antioxidant. It protects our cells from damage. And it's also really good at absorbing UV radiation from the sun, which protects our skin from sunburns and skin cancer.
It was like a built-in sunscreen and bodyguard for ourselves.
Yeah, basically. And scientists are even looking at using it in cosmetics, sunscreens, maybe even cancer treatments.
Oh, you never know what you'll find when you look closer. Now, what about ionic liquids? How are those different from regular solvents?
So most solvents, like water or alcohol, they're made of neutral molecules. Ionic liquids are made entirely of ions, which are charged atoms or molecules.
They're like liquid salts.
Yeah, kind of. And that makes them really special. They don't evaporate easily, so they're safer and better for the environment. They don't catch fire easily, and they can dissolve a lot of different things.
So they're like green solvents that we could use instead of those nasty chemicals.
Exactly, and we can use them for so many things. Solvents for reactions, electrolytes and batteries, even lubricants.
Sounds like ionic liquids are the future of green chemistry.
Yeah.
Okay, what about vaccines? I read about these things called adjuvants, that they can make vaccines better.
Yeah, adjuvants are like helpers for vaccines. They make them more effective.
So they give the immune system a boost.
Exactly. They do that by stimulating the innate immune system. That's the body's first line of defense.
And how do they do that?
Well, they can trigger signals that attract immune cells to the injection site. Or they can directly activate immune cells, making them more responsive to the vaccine itself.
Interesting. So adjuvants are really important for making sure vaccines work well. Now this one is kind of controversial. Gene drives. What are those and why are people worried?
Gene drives, they use CRISPR to make sure that a specific gene edit gets passed down to almost all offspring, not just half, like normal.
So you could make a trait spread through a whole population really quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And we could use that to control things like disease-carrying mosquitoes, or maybe even get rid of invasive species. But it's powerful stuff. People worry about unintended consequences, maybe messing up the ecosystem.
Yeah, I can see why people will be cautious. Okay, chemoenzymatic synthesis, that's a mouthful. What is that all about?
It's about using enzymes to create complex molecules. Enzymes, they're like nature's catalysts.
So we're combining chemistry with the power of enzymes.
Yeah. Enzymes are really good at doing complicated reactions, and they're very specific. So if we combine them with chemical synthesis, we can make molecules that would be really hard to make otherwise.
And what can we use that for?
All sorts of things. New drugs, fine chemicals, flavors, fragrances. It's a really exciting field.
Very cool. Nature always provides the best tools. Okay, piezoelectric materials, what are those?
They can convert mechanical energy into electrical energy and the other way around too.
So if you squeeze them, they make electricity.
Yep. And if you give them electricity, they change shape.
Whoa, that's wild. What do we even use that for?
All sorts of things. Sensors, actuators, ultrasound machines, even systems that can harvest energy.
So they're in a lot of the technology we use every day. What about zwitterionic polymers? Those sound interesting.
They have both positive and negative charges in their structure.
Like a molecular version of a magnet.
Yeah, kind of. And because of that, they're really good for biomedical applications. They're biocompatible, meaning they don't cause problems in the body. And they're also anti-fouling, so they don't get gunked up with proteins and stuff.
So like self-cleaning medical devices. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. We could use them for implants, drug delivery, biosensors, all sorts of things.
Cool. Okay, gallium, I heard that's a weird metal.
It is. It's one of the few metals that's liquid at, like, room temperature.
So if you held it in your hand, it would melt.
Yep, it melts in your hand.
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
That's so weird. But I guess that makes it useful.
Definitely.
Ugh.
High temperature thermometers, semiconductors, even coolants for electronics.
So just because it melts easily, it has all these different uses. Now, what about thermochromic materials? They change color with temperature, right?
Yeah, exactly, like those mood rings.
I loved those as a kid. But are there any more practical uses?
Oh yeah, tons. Temperature-sensitive labels, special inks, even smart windows that can control how much heat and light comes through.
Wow, so they're not just for fun, they're actually useful. Okay, prebiotic chemistry, this one goes way back in time, right?
Yeah, it's all about figuring out how life started on Earth, like how those simple molecules turned into the building blocks of life.
So they're trying to recreate what Earth was like billions of years ago.
Exactly. They try to simulate things like volcanoes, hydrothermal vents, even meteorite impacts, and they see if they can make the molecules that are essential for life.
And have they had any luck?
Yeah, they've made amino acids, nucleotides, even simple sugars, all from simple starting materials.
That's amazing. So life could have just, like, popped up from basic chemistry. Now, our last topic for this part, nitroglycerin.
Yeah.
That's pretty dangerous stuff, right?
Yeah, it's a powerful explosive. It's what they used to make dynamite.
But I thought it was also a medicine.
It is. If you use a very small, controlled dose, it can treat angina. That's when you have reduced blood flow to the heart.
So the same thing that can blow stuff up can also save lives.
Exactly. It just goes to show chemistry is powerful. It can be destructive, but it can also be used for good.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what chemistry can do.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back. We've covered so much ground already. Molecules that eat plastic, the gut-brain connection. Now, let's talk about the FDA. They regulate all the food and medicine we use, right?
Yeah, they have a huge job making sure all those products are safe and actually work. It's interesting how they do it, balancing innovation with, keeping people safe.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. New drugs are always being developed, but you can't just let anything on the market. How do they even decide?
Well, one thing that surprised me, they really focus on the details. Like even the names of drugs. They have a whole list of words you can't use in drug names.
Seriously. A forbidden word list for drugs. That's kind of funny. What kind of words?
Words that make it sound like a miracle cure or make promises that are too good to be true. Like, you can't use cure, safe, or magic. The FDA wants to make sure the name reflects what the drug actually does.
Oh, that makes sense. You don't want people to think a drug is a magic bullet when it's not. So it's not just about the science, it's about how you talk about it, too.
Exactly. It's all about setting the right expectations. People need to know what a drug can and can't do. Speaking of expectations, there's this interesting story about red dye No 2.
Oh, yeah, red dye No 2. I remember that. It got banned, right? Like in the 70s?
It did. But not because it was toxic, like a lot of people think. It was actually because it looked a lot like this dangerous industrial chemical. So the FDA just banned it to be safe, even though the dye itself wasn't really harmful.
Wow, so it was a case of mistaken identity. Chemistry can be tricky like that, I guess. Speaking of tricky, I heard that our liver has its own internal clock.
That's right. It has a circadian rhythm, just like our sleep cycle. And that affects how it processes drugs at different times of day.
So our liver's like scheduling when to take our meds. That's weird.
Yeah, the liver enzymes go up and down throughout the day, so some drugs just work better if you take them at a certain time.
That's fascinating. Our bodies are so complex. And speaking of complexity, I read that some meds can actually make you smell things that aren't there.
Yeah, it's called phantosmia. You basically start smelling phantom smells.
Whoa, that's crazy. So you could be taking a medication and suddenly smell like burnt toast or something. even though there's no toast.
Exactly. It just goes to show, even when we try to design drugs that are very specific, there can be these weird side effects we didn't expect.
It seems like we're always learning new things about chemistry. It's amazing.
That's the cool thing about science. It's a never-ending journey of discovery. And what we talked about today, it's just a small taste of what's happening in the world of chemistry.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey.
Yeah.
From tiny molecules to the impact chemistry has on our lives, it's clear that this field is shaping our future.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up our deep dive, remember to stay curious. Keep asking questions. There's always something new to discover.
That's right. So keep mixing those mental cocktails. Blend curiosity, wonder, and a thirst for knowledge. See what reactions you can create. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring the fascinating world of science.